Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the hidden power in vulnerability. When we think of the word vulnerable or the feeling of vulnerability, we automatically think of weakness. We think of things that we've heard all throughout our life, like never let them see you sweat. We've developed a mindset from early childhood that was developed through society, through our parental ideas, through life experience, that showing yourself, coming out and being yourself and putting yourself out there is like putting your head on a chopping block for rejection, pain, humiliation, any negative feeling that comes along with weakness. Studies show that the biggest human fear of everything that could ever be feared in this life, the biggest fear of most any human being is public speaking, which means even more than being chased by a tiger, even more than, the threat of being killed or whatever. The biggest fear that we have as human beings is to not be accepted and to not be loved. The feeling of rejection, not being included, not being good enough is more terrorizing to people as a real threat to your life and well-being. And so we go on to create our lives wrapped around vulnerability. We develop a mask that we carry in our job, in our relationship, romantic, friendship. We are a different person in every way. We wear a different hat and we act a different way. And why? Because we really don't want to show people who we truly are. We're afraid of what they might think. We're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of not being good enough, not being accepted, not being included. And we go through our entire lives trying to please everyone, trying to show our assertion to people. We become bosses in our job and we terrorize our employees because we're so afraid of giving up control that makes us feel in control, that we need to lead our employees or our coworkers through fear and intimidation because we don't want them to see our weakness. But in essence, that really is a weakness of ours because we're afraid to relinquish control. We're afraid of feeling out of control in our lives. We're afraid of not feeling important, not put on a pedestal, not being special, and not being respected. We tend not to show our loved ones exactly how much we love them because we don't want it to go to their heads. We don't want them to think that there's too much of a soft side to us. We want them to feel like we're in control of our emotions and we love you, but you're not going to get all of that from me because that feels like you're in control and you're in power. But again, that's just that vulnerability of fear and worry of what if they don't love me back? What if it makes me have to give up my power? What if it makes me feel like I might be rejected? If I put myself completely out there, they may just say, I don't want your love. And it ultimately, just like being afraid of speaking in public, the fear of not being loved and the fear of being rejected and judged surpasses everything else. Without vulnerability, our relationships fail because we can never completely open up to our friends, to our loved ones, husbands, wives, co-workers, anybody. We can never connect truly, soul to soul, heart to heart, one-on-one without being vulnerable. We can never have a completely successful business without having vulnerability. We think of vulnerability as weakness, but in essence, vulnerability is weakness, but it's weakness within ourselves. It limits our lives. It limits the way that we interact with people. It limits our interaction with the public. It keeps us from trying things that we want to try and wish we could, but we think that we're putting ourselves out there is going to be mortifying or humiliating, or we're not going to be good enough. And so that vulnerability keeps us in a holding place. It is the slave of us. It holds us in imprisonment. When you really think about it, being vulnerable is the most courageous thing that a human being can do. We have all been hurt. We have all been rejected. We've all felt unloved throughout our lives. We all know that we carry that wound, but we also have all of that in common. There's not one person on the face of this earth that hasn't felt that worry or fear. So if you can see through those eyes, you can see we don't need to hide behind this facade that we carry throughout our lives of being hard, of being cold, of keeping ourselves completely inward, of not going for what we want because it's the safe thing to do, not following our dreams because it's not the safe thing to do. The most courageous thing we can do in our lives is be vulnerable. I know this firsthand by my own experience because this is only my second video, and my first video was so hard for me to put myself out there. I was so worried that everybody was going to think something negatively of me or think, what does she think she's doing? I was trying to work through that, and I got to work, and a coworker cornered me, berated me for making that video, asked what my agenda was, humiliated me in front of other people. And the first reaction that I had was to completely go inward. I felt more vulnerable in that place than I have in a really long time. And my initial reaction was, forget it. I'm just gonna forget all this stuff, and I'm gonna let it go, and I'm just gonna go on with my life because it is not worth putting myself out there to be completely mortified, rejected, hurt. And then I realized that behind what that person said was just their own vulnerability, their own pain, their own hidden issue, and it had nothing to do with me. And so it helped me release that feeling. It helped me relax in that space and in that moment. It helped me realize my vulnerability opened up a place of that person's vulnerability. You will never be able to do anything great, truly for you without being vulnerable. You will never be able to step out of your comfort zone without vulnerability. There will always be a risk of rejection and pain and embarrassment and people not loving you. You'll always have that risk. But you're going to have it in your protective mode, that nobody can touch me because I am strong, even though we all know that we all wear a mask that's hiding something much more raw within us. Your greatness can never be seen without vulnerability. That is the most courageous thing that we can ever do. The most liberating thing that we can ever do in our lives is to put ourselves out there. It's okay if we're rejected. It's okay if somebody makes us not feel loved. Be rest assured, the feeling that you went for it, that you stepped out of that comfort zone, will help you be able to step further and further and further out of that comfort zone. There's such a freedom and strength in vulnerability. Being unwilling to be vulnerable is the greatest stealer of joy. We can never truly feel freedom and joy without being vulnerable. Let me tell you, bad things happen in this life. We are not getting out of this lifetime alive. There will be pain in this life. But when we can't allow ourselves to truly feel joy, we are robbing ourselves of what is the most precious emotion that we can experience as human beings on this earth. In order to feel true joy, we have to allow ourselves that vulnerability. We have to allow ourselves to feel it. As a medical professional, I can tell you that so many times when I've seen people in their dying moments, they are not worried about how strong they appeared to their family members or their friends or their coworkers. Their biggest regret is not showing enough love, of not putting themselves out there, for not reaching their dreams, for not being who they really were this whole time without being able to express who they truly are. Allow vulnerability into your life. Practice it just little by little. Whatever it takes in your life that just pushes you out of your comfort zone just a little more and a little more will help you practice vulnerability. Also, practice the art of gratefulness and appreciation. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in what we don't like about our lives, we don't like about ourselves. We're in so much judgment of each other and of ourselves. Being vulnerable is the strongest, most courageous, most rewarding thing that we can do for ourselves and for our family. We owe it to our children and our children's children to become vulnerable, because otherwise we are just going to hand down these habits to our kids and their children, and it will just continue on. The cycle can stop now. The dysfunction of our thoughts as human beings and our dysfunctional thought process can stop now with you, with your choice. I hope that this video has helped you in some way, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I look forward to our next talk and our next video, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching.